Right, nuclear, intercontinental ballistic missiles, laser weapons and robotic dog drones, they're all on show at China's massive military parade. Let's just take a quick look now at some of that, shall we? So sitting here from the outside, looking at it globally, what does it all mean? We thought we'd better ask someone who knows a little bit more about this. Geoffrey Miller, who is a geopolitical analyst, joins me now from Dunedin. Good morning, Geoffrey. What was your takeaway from seeing those three major leaders, Xi Jinping, Putin, and North Korea's on sort of side by side for the first time?
Good morning, Garth. Well, look, this week has all been about symbolism. It started off in Tianjin, a port city in the north of China, and that's where the Shanghai Cooperation Organisation conference was held. And that's where you saw Narendra Modi and Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping all huddled together, and those images came out at the start of the week. And then attention is now turned to Beijing for this massive military parade, the first big parade like this since 2019 in China. And the common theme for both has been the global south and non-Western leaders. And that's why you saw Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong, the supreme leader of North Korea, were pride of place at this parade. They were the main guests. There was no mistaking that. They were the lead guests walking alongside Xi Jinping at the parade. It was very clear, the messaging, that there is an alternative to US dominance. This is it. And Xi Jinping is going to be the leader of that movement, in a sense. And that's certainly the image that China was trying to project here.
This is the sort of the BRICS are back, baby, or they're here to stay, and they are stepping up. I mean, they've all got their own particular interests, and probably if you say that they're all just aligned against the US, do they have that much in common, really?
Well, look, we're seeing increasing polarization in the world now. And to just underline that, we saw Donald Trump post on his Truth Social during that parade saying, give my best regards as you conspire against the United States of America.
So he hates being out of the headlines, doesn't he?
the world at loggerheads, in a sense, or the world divided increasingly. And that's a trend that has been going on now for some time. Especially since the COVID-19 pandemic, these geopolitical tensions have been ratcheting up, and you just have to reflect on how much has changed. This was the 80th anniversary of the Japanese surrender. There was a similar parade 10 years ago in 2015, and you think, what has changed since then? That was before Donald Trump in his first term, before COVID-19, before so many of these tensions that we've seen. And that parade back in 2015 had quite a large contingent of Western participants, Western leaders, Western ministers. This time around, they were noticeably absent for the most part from the guest list.
Although we did see Helen Clark and John Key, I watched them both getting the big handshake welcome. I thought, gosh, they're important. They're the first people there. Then you realise the most important people are actually at the back of the queue. So probably they were sort of down the pecking order, not being current politicians. But what do you think it says to China that you've got both a Labour or a national former Prime Minister turning up? Does that just look like, hey, New Zealand, you can, same, different, you can trust them no matter what?
Well, I think it was good that they were there, and they were representing, John Key and Helen Clark were representing New Zealand. They weren't representing the government in an official capacity. These were former leaders. China described them as statespeople, and that's why they were being invited. And there were quite a few others in that lineup. You had former leaders from the likes of Italy, Romania, a number of European countries were there alongside John Key and Helen Clark. So they weren't alone, and that was actually where most of the Western participants came in. It was in these former leaders, and certainly it was it was a throwback in a sense to the golden era of New Zealand-China relations. Look, China is still a massively important partner for New Zealand, New Zealand's biggest trading partner by some margin. But it is clear that there are tensions now in the relationship between New Zealand and China that perhaps weren't in the same way when Helen Clark and John Key were New Zealand Prime Ministers. So, look, the world is changing. I think that's obvious. This parade yesterday was just a visual representation, I guess, of just how much things are, how much is changing in the world at the moment.
Do we think that the Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon, might have had an invitation, and do we think that if he did, would it have been wise to accept it, or smarter to sort of try and push things the other way and have these eminent statesmen and women sort of turn up in his stead?
Yeah, well, from what I've read, he wasn't invited, and that was the case for most Western leaders. So there was no question to answer there. There was no invitation to accept or reject. If he had been invited, I think he should have accepted, because this is New Zealand's biggest trading partner, and I think you should be there. You should engage. I think we need more dialogue, more interaction. I don't think we get anywhere just sitting on the sidelines and putting out messages on Truth Social, and that's what Donald Trump's message is. I think you win when you engage, and in the end, we want to stave off a conflict, not enter one. And I think the way that you do that is through dialogue and through talking. So Xi Jinping made that choice yesterday between dialogue and confrontation. I think we should choose dialogue here.